Hello.
Special thanks to Onasaber for sponsoring our 90,000 subscriber lightsaber giveaway. We'll be giving away 3 lightsabers. All the details are in the pinned comment down below. Our story begins shortly after the Battle of Teth, Christophsis, and the delivery of Jabba's son to Tatooine. Anakin was paired up with Ahsoka Tano as his Padawan, and while they had some genuine moments of bonding, he decided that he didn't want a student. He didn't believe he was right for it, and aside from that, he knew he'd rather work alone than with a Padawan. Anakin didn't tell Ahsoka about it. He just waited until they returned to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Ahsoka was happy to walk with her master as they walked through the temple. Anakin told her to stay down here as he walked forward into the elevator that would take him into the High Council chambers. When the doors opened at the top of the lift, he walked through and into the council chambers. Anakin looked around at the council members and told them what he would like to do, and that was request a change. They were all taken aback a little, but they listened. Anakin told the council that he didn't want to be a Jedi Master, and he didn't believe that the time was right. In reality, Anakin had said to Rex that he never wanted to be a teacher. He felt that way, and he had to say that. But he needed to convey it in a means that would make the council understand what he was trying to say. Anakin said he didn't want Ahsoka anymore. He just wanted to fight this war by himself without having to worry about a Padawan running around. He didn't criticize Ahsoka, but he also didn't compliment her. He just said he wanted to operate alone, and that he believed that the council should have asked him for his permission before giving Ahsoka to him. Yoda sat quietly before speaking up and telling Anakin that Ahsoka was given to him for him. The council, including Obi-Wan especially, believed that Ahsoka would be beneficial to Anakin and that she would encourage him to continue his journey as a Jedi teacher. They wanted Anakin to have Ahsoka, not for their own benefit, but for his. Anakin stood quietly. He digested the words and looked around. He shook it out of him, and looked at the council and respectfully asked that they give Ahsoka to another teacher, one that would be more capable of such a task. The wait in the council chambers deepened. Even for those not in the room, it was unbearable. Tension rose, and the council members looked at each other. Yoda said to Anakin that if he didn't want a student, the council wouldn't force him to keep her, though he would have the responsibility of having sent her up to the council chambers with the knowledge that he had given her up. Anakin nodded his head and thanked the council for taking his request sincerely. He walked out of the room, and the council members began talking to each other about who would take on this student. There was a lot of disappointment from everyone within the council, most specifically Obi-Wan and Yoda. They believed Anakin would be at the very least accepting of the new student and take her on. They truthfully believed that Ahsoka would help Anakin better himself as a Jedi and as an individual. Giving Ahsoka to Anakin wasn't a chore or a punishment, but seen as a high honor. To have a student at his age was very rare, and it was a sign that the council wanted to trust him. They wanted him to be like them, and they wanted him to feel such an honor. For Jedi born within the Order, it was the highest honor to have a rank of Jedi Master and to have trained a student into knighthood. That was an accomplishment, not for themselves, but for the Order as a whole. Every Jedi wanted to be the best they could to be the benefit of their brothers and sisters around them. Master Plo wasn't on Coruscant due to him hunting down a secret weapon that the Separatists had, so Mace Windu informed the council that he would take on Ahsoka Tano. All the council members saw it. Ahsoka had a lot of potential. She was handpicked literally for Anakin, and since Windu was the closest type of Jedi to Anakin, he would be best suited to take her on as an apprentice. Not for nothing, Windu had an impressive track record of Jedi as Padawans. His last student was Depa Billaba, and she was a council member, and he himself was one of the youngest to be seated on the High Council. Chances are that he would mesh very well with Ahsoka like Anakin could have, and he could, especially as an established master, likely help her reach her potential a lot quicker than Anakin could have. At the bottom of the elevator, Skywalker walked out and told Ahsoka that the council was waiting for her. She looked concerned and confused. Anakin told her that he didn't want her to feel at all responsible for this, and he didn't want her to blame herself, but she was no longer his Padawan. Ahsoka's heart stopped. She looked at Anakin and asked why. Anakin shook his head. He told her that he never requested a Padawan, and he didn't want to prohibit her growth. Ahsoka could see right through that lie. Anakin was already a terrible liar, and despite the little time they had together, Ahsoka could see right through it. He didn't want her as a Padawan, not because of prohibiting her. There was something else, but he wouldn't share it. So Ahsoka was left with the assumption that there was something wrong with her, and that she was being abandoned by her master because she was a bad student. Ahsoka pleaded with Anakin and apologized. She said that she would make it up to him, that she wouldn't be so snippy or snarky or anything. She didn't want to be abandoned. Anakin told her it was for the better as he guided her into the doors and watched as they closed in front of her. In a solitary moment, both Anakin and Ahsoka felt a range of the same emotions. While Ahsoka's were much more based around betrayal, self-doubt, and shame, Anakin's revolved around disappointment in himself, regret, and, yes, shame. He couldn't believe that he had done that. He was so confident with the decision in front of the council, and now he didn't know what to think. Anakin looked at the door quietly for a moment, taking in what he had just done. Was that worth it? Would that solve all of his issues, or did he just make the biggest mistake of his life? He didn't really know. All he knew is that Ahsoka was gone, and she was no longer his apprentice. He had to return to the 501st and inform his men that Commander Tano would not be returning to them. What had he done? Was this the largest mistake he'd ever made? It certainly felt like it was. He couldn't believe himself. Anakin started back to the hangar bay so he could return to the Venator and inform his men of what had happened. His thoughts beat him down, and he felt worse about it the further he got from the Jedi Temple. Inside of the lift, Ahsoka held herself. Tears slipped from her eyes, and she couldn't process anything. It wasn't her fault, but it felt like it was. It felt like the entire reason it happened was because of her boisterous personality. She regretted having ever spoken the way she did, or acting in a particular way, or doing this, that, or the other. What was so wrong about her that couldn't have been fixed? What was so bad about her as an individual? The doors opened. Ahsoka looked up and stepped lightly into the room. She could hear the council members talking to each other about their disappointment in Anakin. The loudest of the voices was Obi-Wan. He was so taken aback that Anakin didn't keep with Ahsoka. He really didn't know what to think. It was just such a confusing thing to him. She was a perfect student for him and he just did that, threw it to the side? What was wrong with him? Ahsoka stepped forward and tried to wipe the tears from her face as she walked into the chambers themselves. The council became silent and waited for her to position herself in the middle of the room. She told the council that she was so sorry. She didn't mean to make Anakin abandon her. She didn't want to. Her voice snapped and cracked. She couldn't squeeze out the rest of the words. Yoda spoke up and told her that she didn't do anything wrong. The actions of Skywalker did not make her any worse. That was not her fault. She was still a fine student and she would be a great Jedi. Ahsoka looked up with tears streaming down her face and she asked why he abandoned her. She didn't understand. Some of the council members looked at each other around the room. Mundi was at odds with emotions, and so were a couple of others, but a lot of the council members felt such a deep regret over it. Eth Koth, Shak Ti, Plo Koon, Obi-Wan, Depa Billaba, and a number of others felt such a terrible shame. They didn't want this pain for Ahsoka. She was so young, it wasn't her fault, but at her age, she wouldn't have an easy time understanding that. All she thought she could understand was that it was her fault when it really wasn't. Mace told Ahsoka that it would all be okay. He stood up and told her that despite Skywalker's lack of interest in teaching, she would not be abandoned. He told her that he would take her on as his own student, and he would teach her the ways of the Force so she could become a Jedi Knight. Windu told her that she had so much potential and that she had to only trust the process and she would see it in herself. This experience right now was nothing but a trial for her, just like everything else thus far in her life. She'd be able to overcome this trial as well. Windu excused himself from the council and turned to Ahsoka and told her that he would help her. She was very clearly nervous, not because it was Master of the Order Mace Windu, but because she didn't want to be abandoned again. Windu asked if she would like to accompany him to his meditation chamber. She nodded her head, and, still wiping a few tears away from her face, and joined him. When they arrived, Ahsoka sat on one of the many chairs in the room. Windu sat across from her. He told her that he was very apologetic for what had happened to her. While it was unfair, her past did not define her. She was very confused. It was very clearly her present. Mace shook his head. Her abandonment was behind her. As time flows, so does the Force. As Jedi, Mace expressed, they had to flow with the Force. They had to allow the present to flow naturally, without allowing the past or the actions of others rip apart that flow. She choked under breath again. It hurt her heart so badly. She wasn't close with Anakin, but the abandonment, to be just ditched the way she was by Anakin, she didn't have a chance to say anything and it broke her. Mace told her to release those feelings, let them into the Force, let them go, and allow the Force to let them flow. Ahsoka didn't understand, and Mace told her that what happened didn't make her who she was. Ahsoka looked at her master, and he told her that there were so many emotions that people felt. They as Jedi as well felt. Jedi weren't perfect beings, and while her early teachings would dissuade her from actively acknowledging those emotions, his personal philosophy had him believing that releasing those emotions would allow them to bind themselves within the Force and allow them to become full users of the Force itself, in accordance with the code, obviously. Ahsoka asked how that could be. He told her that through the Force, Jedi became powerful. Through the Force, Jedi became concentrated. Through the Force, Jedi became unstoppable. If she latched onto that moment when her world seemingly fell out from under her, she could not be a Jedi. The attachment she should fear the most is latching on to what no longer is. He told her that she didn't have to immediately let it go. She should accept that it happened before letting it go. As a Padawan, it would take her time to understand how to do that. But in Mace's words, it took baby steps. She wouldn't be able to just adjust it immediately. She needed to take her time. She asked why, and Mace told her that if she didn't, it could allow the dark side to inhibit her mind. It could allow what she never wanted to become more. The Force is powerful, and it flows through every living being. Every being was capable of light and dark, but to control oneself, they could no longer see light and dark as obstacles or destinations, rather, just one force. Ahsoka tried wrapping her mind around all of it. She told Mace that she could never be like him. Mace smiled at her. He told her that he had no intention of turning her into him. He was Mace Windu, but she was Ahsoka Tano. He was going to turn her into her. He couldn't make her the Jedi Master of the Order because perhaps she was way more than that. Her journey would decide that. The trust established in this moment made Ahsoka so appreciative for Windu's words. They may have been a lot to take in and a lot to understand, but she would come to understand it at some point, and when she did, it would make her journey all the more complete. Over the coming days, Ahsoka would learn to let go of what was and what will be. She learned to focus on the moment she resided in, and accepted that despite the challenge of her abandonment, she was grateful for it, not because she was being taught by the Master of the Order, but because the path gave her a challenge that set her on a path to be who she was always meant to be. Did she know who she was meant to be? Of course not. She was focused on who she was meant to be at the moment. That's what mattered most. In time, she would develop into who she was meant to become. Windu knew that with an arduous task of dealing with abandonment, he needed to allow her time to deal with it emotionally and mentally before they could focus on anything else. Though something interrupted that, and that was the disappearance of Master Plo Koon. She was so distraught over that, and Windu decided against his own judgment to take her to the Albrigado system to see if they could find and save him. Though during this, Mace learned something himself. As an established master, he knew that there was something to learn from each and every student, but this particular instant taught him something about his student herself. She was very intuitive, she was very in tune with the Force. For Windu, he realized that her potential only made her so much better of a student for him to have. Though one thing he could not tell was that Ahsoka was obsessive. Over what? He wasn't sure yet. All he knew is that she was obsessive with the idea of becoming the best Jedi there was. But he had to remind her that being a Jedi wasn't about being the best Jedi. It's about being the best version of one's self. With the saving of Plo Koon, the Jedi were informed of the location of the Malevolence, and General Skywalker led the assault on the weapon that it would initially cripple it until reinforcements could assist the takedown in the super weapon. Mace and Ahsoka, upon their return to the temple, would continue their journey as master and apprentice. Windu knew that once Ahsoka got past her mental blocks, she'd be able to begin her training as a Jedi Padawan. Off the bat, he acknowledged that her reverse grip was a unique stance, but it would work really well with her. As Master of the Order, he was very familiar with all types of combat and how to master the lightsaber. He didn't want Ahsoka to feel left out by anything, so anything she found interest in, even if he didn't understand it, he learned it so he could teach it to her. Though initially the two of them spent a lot of time inside the temple, Ahsoka and Windu were eventually deployed to Ryloth, where Skywalker was currently leading an assault against the Separatists. Mace in hyperspace finally figured it out. Ahsoka's obsessive tendencies weren't actually there to begin with. It was a prove you wrong mindset. That came from Anakin. He realized that Ahsoka, despite her intention to work very hard, was obsessed with the idea of making Anakin look bad for not keeping her as a student. She worked harder and spent more time training than most people would because she was dedicated to the idea that she could become the best Jedi there was. And while there were some benefits to this obsession, the obsession with proving someone wrong and being the best Jedi weren't exactly what she should be doing. While en route to Ryloth, Windu talked to her about what she should be doing with that energy. Because the energy was very positive. It was clear that she wasn't actively trying to use the dark side or get revenge. She was just literally trying to prove herself as a useful Jedi. She didn't like the abandonment, and while there was a layer of trust between the two of them as master and apprentice, there was some sort of worry for her. Master Windu understood these concerns and allowed her to voice them. His adherence to the code didn't make him a brute, but it certainly didn't mean he wouldn't listen to her. There was a bond of trust between the two of them, and that's what Mace needed. He needed to trust her, and she needed to trust him. This was a key difference between Ahsoka and Anakin in his own eyes. Mace trusted Ahsoka, but not Anakin. When Ahsoka voiced her concerns and her feelings, Windu reminded her of what she should do with those. Release them. If she held on to them, then she would be grounded. She got frustrated. How does one just release them? Those feelings were internal. Did he just want her to reach down inside of herself and pull them out? Like, that's not physically possible. He snickered at the attitude because it was amusing, and told her that it was an emotional release. He told her to close her eyes. She could see the blue hyperspace speeding by her even with her eyes closed. He then told her to reach through the Force. Ahsoka opened her eyes and told him that it was a basic instruction everyone learned. Mace raised his eyebrows at her and she immediately closed her eyes again with a quick apology. He told her it was okay. He told her to feel through the Force, let it surround her. He told her that when she was floating in the Force, when she was no longer grounded, that she'd be able to feel time and space around her. When she was there, allow her emotions to be free. Don't restrict them, release them, let them go. Let those emotions become one with the Force. When she did that, she would let go of her obsession, and she would let go of her desire to prove Skywalker wrong. When she did that, she could begin doing her training for herself, rather than anyone else. Ahsoka would focus on this, but she wouldn't be able to get to the bottom of it before they got to Ryloth. During the battle, she became really frustrated with it, but Windu told her that it took patience, it couldn't just be done immediately. Of course, with a galactic-scale war going on, it wasn't going to be easy for a young one to focus on the Force, but that was okay. While Ahsoka's development as a Padawan was going really well, Anakin, on the other hand, was regretting his decision. He was very happy with the decision after he made it, and then of course he had to tell Ahsoka, and he felt terrible. Now it was eating him up on the inside. It's not like Anakin was the biggest overthinker either, but doing that to Ahsoka just felt so wrong. Plus, Mace Windu and Ahsoka were always together, and she looked so happy. She was always smiling and looking up to Master Windu. He was her master, and that was a high honor that the Council placed onto Anakin that was not his anymore. He really at this point realized that he didn't know what he had until it was gone. When he had a chance to return to the Council chambers, he asked for their permission to have a student again. They promptly denied his request, informing him that they respected his decision to not have a student, and decided that they were wrong for entrusting him with the responsibility. Skywalker was very upset because it was kind of backhanded. The Council wasn't being petty though. In their eyes, they were respecting his initial wishes, and making it so another student didn't have to go through what Ahsoka went through. They made that decision. There was no guarantee that Skywalker wouldn't just change his mind again. Anakin pleaded with the Council that they reconsider him as a Jedi Master again, and they simply had one request: become trustworthy. The collective Council did not dislike him. They just didn't trust him. If he could become someone they could trust, then yeah, he could have a Padawan again. Obviously that would take time to happen, but they didn't expect it to happen until at the very least the end of the war. Ahsoka at this point was able to move on from the struggles she had from her abandonment. She was much more in tune with everything, and it was here where she and Master Windu started to butt heads with each other. This butting of heads wasn't bad at all in their dynamic. Mace could be very strict with his students, and that wasn't anything new. However, when it came to the training with the usage of the dark side, he was extremely strict. Ahsoka was a very fast progressing student. She got her grip on understanding his teachings very quickly, but it was when he started the simple introduction to Vapad and Shatterpoint that she started to have her struggles with them. Ahsoka had a very big interest in learning both, but when she dug into the darkness, her struggles from the past would flare up, and Windu would have to teach her how to avoid doing that. The two of them butted heads more along the lines of ideological and philosophical ideas. While Mace Windu was a good man and personified the best of the Jedi, he also represented their failure throughout this war. The failure of the Jedi to maintain peace and keep the war from happening. Windu was loyal to the Galactic Republic, and while that didn't mean he was loyal to Palpatine, it meant he believed that the Jedi and the Republic were one. Though this is something that he couldn't have gotten away from. By the time Master Windu was born, the Republic and the Jedi were essentially inseparable. They were seen together as one, and it happened while Master Yoda was the Grand Master of the Jedi Order. This argument between Master and Apprentice is where the same argument existed decades before between Dooku and Windu. The two of them were close friends, but Dooku believed that the Jedi shouldn't be so tightly wound into the Republic. Windu was following the code, as was laid out before him. He followed it strictly and enforced that Ahsoka do the same. And while she did listen to her master, it didn't mean that she didn't ask questions regarding it. Their discussions never got hostile, but they did disagree with certain things. The one that worried Mace the most was Ahsoka's similar ideology to Dooku's, which is how the Republic was far too corrupt for the Jedi. Yoda helped situate the Jedi into a situation where they couldn't see the failure of the Republic unless they went outwards and looked in. These little head-butting discussions between Master and Apprentice didn't create a divide between the two of them. They respected each other greatly, and they trusted each other just as much. Ahsoka also had the benefit of being an incredible duelist. Her ability to wield a lightsaber so perfectly was largely due to the teaching she received from her master. On the battlefront, the two of them were an unstoppable duo. Without Ahsoka, Master Windu would have single-handedly destroyed 100,000 Type 1 battle droids. With her, that number doubled. The two of them were on the front line more than the 501st was. This did inevitably land Windu and Ahsoka on Umbara with the 501st. For Windu and Ahsoka, this was the worst of the war, but they led with remarkable precision. Of course, when Anakin was shipped out, Pong Krell was shipped in. Because Windu had a commander, he was able to approach the traitor within their ranks. While Ahsoka led her men on an all-out assault on the enemy, Master Windu confronted Pong Krell. While the clones believed that they could handle it on their own, Mace did not want any of the clones to be killed for no reason. Their survival and their lives meant a lot to him, and he would not risk their lives for anything. He ordered them to build a perimeter, and when he confronted Krell, a duel began. Krell was a fierce duelist, but Mace was able to make short work of him by chasing him out of the command center and killing him in the forest. Windu tried giving him a chance for surrender, but he never asked for it. As the war continued, there would be a bombing at the Jedi Temple, a bombing that would throw Ahsoka into the heat of the blame. The situation unfolded very unfavorably for Ahsoka, and she ended up taking the blame for the entire situation, which Windu was not fond of. Being that the Jedi were so tightly tied to the Republic, she was forced to take the fall from the collective council. While Ahsoka was at odds with the entire situation, and even seemingly her master, Windu brought in an investigator to help ease the situation. Master Quinlan Vos and Windu went down to the lower levels and were able to find a real culprit before Ahsoka even got officially removed from the Jedi Order. Windu felt terrible for the entire ordeal, but he believed that as the Force worked, it was a test for resilience. Ahsoka would remain inside the Jedi Order, but what came from it was a conversation that was as tense as anyone could imagine. Once Ahsoka decided to stay inside the Jedi Order, the Council eventually cleared from the Council chambers, after Ahsoka was made into a Jedi Knight, of course. Ahsoka asked her master if he was really willing to sacrifice her life. Windu shook his head. She wasn't meant to be any sort of sacrifice, but he was the master of the Order. When someone is given that responsibility, they must uphold all of its values, even if they agreed with all of them. Mace told her that he would have done anything to prevent her death, but as master of the Order and member of the High Council, his job for the Order was to protect the Jedi Order at all costs. While it was a sham that she ended up being blamed for something she had no control over, it didn't change the fact that he was master of the Order. He had to protect the Order at all costs. She asked why he seemed so cold throughout the entire situation, and to her, Windu reminded his former student about their earlier lessons. The focus was on the moment. The present affects the future. If he allowed his attachment to her to ride him from his investigation, he may have never been able to save her and find what he was looking for. Mace never wanted to lose her, which is why the Jedi Council did not remove her from the Order. He took a deep breath. But because Republic workers were killed in the blast, the Senate and especially the Chancellor were breathing down their necks, looking for someone to blame. When it became clear that Ahsoka could have been the culprit, the Chancellor tried to rush the process. Ahsoka asked why that was, and Windu said he did not know. But he wasn't very fond of the Chancellor to begin with, and now he really didn't trust him. Mace told his former student that he would understand if she didn't trust him anymore, or if she didn't want to stick around him anymore. He just wanted to let her know that if she didn't, he was extremely proud of her for her courage, her strength, and her resilience, because it inspired him for the past 2.5 years. Ahsoka expressed that she felt like she was being left in the cold, but she understood why he was so focused. She recognized that if he wasn't focused, she may have been removed from the Jedi Order and beyond saving. Though because the trial never began and she was the only potential suspect in the case, all pressure fell down on her. Windu kept everything situated so she wouldn't be executed, and it did inevitably save her life, even if he was cold to her in the moment. Mace told her that if she needed anything, he would help her with it. If not, then they could continue their missions together. Ahsoka expressed how she was stressed in the past couple of days and she just wanted some time to rest. He told her that he supported her in doing so. He understood how difficult the situation was, but reminded her that she made it through because of who she was, not because of him. Her strength inspired the Order, reminding her to never forget her strength. While Ahsoka was grateful, she was beginning to question her master's loyalty to the Republic more than ever. Yes, he saved her life, and yes, he admitted the lack of trust for the Chancellor, but if the Chancellor was the issue, why didn't they do something about it? A couple days later, she would reapproach her master and ask him a load of questions. Again, they would be in the council chambers alone, though this time they were accompanied by Grandmaster Yoda. It wasn't per Ahsoka's request to be alone, she just mentioned that she preferred a council not be in session. Yoda and Windu were the only ones left in the room, so it made sense for them to be the ones to hear Ahsoka's concerns. She admitted that she understood the connection between the Republic and the Jedi. However, she did not understand how the Jedi didn't have enough of a voice to say something against the Chancellor. Yoda expressed that while the Jedi hadn't exactly disagreed with Chancellors for the most part in the last couple of centuries, Palpatine was different. He had emergency control over the Senate, which meant he could target the Jedi if he wanted. Not that it would be supported, but both Master of the Order and Grandmaster understood that the Jedi were taking a significant blame for the continuation of the war, even though they could not legitimately end the war. Now, the Jedi didn't believe that Palpatine could use Order 66 or know about it, but they knew they could come under scrutiny from political attacks. Ahsoka suggested that they do something, but Yoda told her they couldn't. This wasn't like they were working with Chancellor Valorum. Palpatine made it very clear from the beginning of his time in office that the Jedi were not the top of his priorities. He selected and chose people he liked to enter his office and meet with him. Skywalker was one of them. When he wanted the Jedi Council, they had to make time for him. It was a very one-sided relationship. Ahsoka couldn't stand the idea of this, and why hadn't she heard of this before? Ahsoka told them that they had to do something about it. Mace told her that they couldn't. If they made a move without any reason to do so, then they would sacrifice their order. They could not and would not make a move on the Senate unless they had a genuine reason to believe they could do it without endangering the Jedi Order. The room fell silent for a moment. Ahsoka asked if they thought that there was something wrong with Palpatine. They didn't really have anything to prove that he was bad or a Sith or anything wrong like that. He just simply was a corrupt politician in their eyes, one who took control of a corrupt Senate as it seemed. Ahsoka looked out the window and thought. She turned back and told her former master that she had an idea, but he wouldn't like it. With a look on her face, he could tell what she was about to say. Ahsoka suggested that she spy on the Chancellor. She was a knight, and it wasn't out of the question. Mace looked at Yoda, who asked her if this was some sort of vengeance for almost being convicted. Ahsoka quickly shook her head. She told the two of them that she believed the Republic was tarnishing the reputation of the Jedi Order. The Jedi should be held in higher regard, and believed that Palpatine was hurting the Order itself. The war wasn't over yet, and while she and Mace had many political discussions over the past couple years, she admitted that she wasn't fond of the lack of proposals to end the war from Palpatine. Yoda and Windu looked at each other. There was some legitimacy here. The Jedi weren't trusting of him, and if she was successful, then she could help their cause. However, there was an issue. If she was caught or captured, they couldn't bail her out of it. Ahsoka realized that, and she knew that before she decided to offer these services. She believed that if she was going to face death, then she would do it by her own accord. If she could help the Jedi, then they could escape this issue, end the war, and maybe get Palpatine out of office. If it turned out that Palpatine wasn't behind everything, then they were kind of out of luck. It's alright though. Ahsoka was skinny and small enough to sneak through vents and do some work. Mace asked her if there's anything they could provide for her while she was doing this mission, and she said all she wanted was their trust that she would get this right. They expressed their trust for her, but they informed her that no one else could know about it. This information wasn't going on record. Ahsoka gritted her teeth. Someone else had to know. Well, who else? Ahsoka told them that Jedi Master Tera Sinube would likely have some information or tools that she could use during this process. It could help their cause. Well, Tera Sinube was a former council member, so why not? They requested Sinube to the council chambers so that they could fill him in on their plan, and he was on board with it. However, he would not be joining Ahsoka inside of the investigation itself. Rather, he would just help her with tactics and supplies she needed for it. Ahsoka went for the late-night approach, and snuck into the Chancellor's office, avoiding all the cameras and putting a chip into each of them. For the people working at the Republic Executive Building, this would be nothing changed for them. They would see the same feed. All it meant was a second feed was going to the Jedi Temple, and the Jedi could see everything else. Ahsoka made sure she wasn't even seen anywhere near the Senate building. She didn't use Jedi vehicles, and she didn't interact with any garments that a Jedi would wear. She covered herself from head to toe to create a disguise no one could see through. Nothing considerable would come up for a number of weeks until Ahsoka started tracking Palpatine outside the Senate. She put trackers on all of his vehicles, but they never went anywhere aside from his residence. All of his personal vehicles hadn't been touched in years, so he never seemingly left his residence aside from the Senate building, or the Republic Executive Building. That couldn't be it. There had to be something else, but what could it be? Ahsoka began to get riskier with her operations. She made sure that throughout the duration of this, she wasn't near the Chancellor. Not that she assumed he was force sensitive, she was just paranoid about accidentally being seen. She started to follow the trail and follow him about 10 minutes behind. This almost cost her, but in the end, it ended up saving her. She was passing by the Chancellor's residence as an unmarked vehicle left it, one she'd never seen before. Ahsoka couldn't follow it, but she had a drone follow it until the drone couldn't go any further. This led Ahsoka to learning that the Chancellor was heading towards the industrial sector. This was the exact same time Yoda was returning to Coruscant for his mission to Dagobah, Morabon, and so on. Ahsoka believed this is where her mission would end. She couldn't go any further because trailing him to the industrial sector was far too dangerous. For Ahsoka, she believed it was a white-collar crime like tax evasion or investments with shady dealers. Little did she realize that it was far worse. Windu and Yoda took on the information, and once Yoda revealed his visions to the Council, they all became super worried about the possibility of Palpatine being the Sith Lord. As if things couldn't get more difficult for the Council, Skywalker wanted to talk to them. The Council was up in arms and debate about what they should do regarding the whole Palpatine situation. And then Skywalker came in. He wanted to know if he could take on a student, and the Council, because of the pressing conversation at hand, gave him a student. Yoda was recently working with a youngling named Daisha Numa. She was very similar to Ahsoka, but she was a Twi'lek, with rare red markings across her body. She'd make a fine student for Anakin. They gave him Daisha and told him where to find her. Anakin was extremely grateful and quickly left. Due to his desire to earn the right to become a Jedi Master again, he separated himself from Palpatine as much as he could. When Anakin left the room, they dropped back into the discussion. The Jedi decided it would be best for them to jump Palpatine when he was next there. They also brought Ahsoka back to the Council chambers, and she told them that she would inform them of anything else they needed. This kind of hindered the Republic war effort, but the Jedi generals sent their armies off-world without them. As they did, Palpatine moved back to his little lair, and he was jumped. The Jedi surprised him with a full council and defeated him. He killed a couple of members, but he died before he could go any further. The big difficulty now is figuring out how to end the war. The Separatists were on the retreat, and they just killed the Chancellor. Ironic. The Jedi were meant to take things slow and they rushed in. Now they had to swing things back into their own direction. But they very quickly came up with a plan. they could start an investigation to search for Palpatine, and then they would try and force a peace treaty to happen. It would be very difficult, but they'd have to vie for someone like Bail Organa or one of his allies to become the Supreme Chancellor in Palpatine's absence. They would bail out with Organa becoming the interim Supreme Chancellor. See what I did there? Bail? Okay, whatever. The Republic made it very clear that they didn't want the Separatists to find out, but that didn't last long. Dooku had one of his two decisions to make. He could assume Palpatine was dead and go full out against the Republic, or he could assume Palpatine was in hiding to begin the next phase of their plan. It was unknown, but he wanted the Republic gone, so he prepared to strike at the home world of Coruscant. Dooku couldn't tell if Sidious was going undercover or not, so he launched the invasion of Coruscant way too early and caught himself in a bind. With the entire council present, Mace Windu, Saesee Tiin, Anakin Kolar, and Kit Fisto would board the Invisible Hand. Tiin and Fisto would take on General Grievous, while Kolar and Windu took on Dooku. Each respective battle was very intense, as one could imagine, but Fisto had already beat Grievous before, and with Tiin by his side, the droid general stood no chance. Dooku, on the other hand, was forced to surrender, but she complied. The Jedi tried to use Dooku as a bargain to force the Separatists to surrender after the Republic won the Battle of Coruscant, but the offer wasn't taken legitimately. The Separatists wanted to continue the war. The only issue is the leaders were now Nute Gunray and the rest of the bunch. This didn't bode well for them because once their location was discovered by the Republic, they dropped in, hellbent for victory. Their search for Palpatine continued throughout the duration of this time, until the Republic jumped over the CIS capital of Raxus. The war was over. Obviously, Bo-Katan had been requesting reinforcements on Mandalore for weeks, so Obi-Wan was finally given permission to assist, and he killed Maul, and the Crimson Dawn was left disbanded with no leadership. Anakin, on the other hand, had to make an important decision. He was a father now, but he also had Daisha as a Padawan. He decided that he would continue to serve as a Jedi until Daisha became a Jedi Knight, and then he would leave the Order. This put a strain on Anakin and Padme's relationship, but they made their compromises for each other to make sure it all worked out for them in the end. Windu and his former student would get closer and closer after the war ended, as they discussed what should be done regarding the Jedi. They saw her point of view, and this time brought it to the High Council, where he was given a chance to vote on it. They decided to remove themselves from the Republic once the Reconstruction period was over with and the peace treaty was finalized. During the voting process for the peace treaty and the Reconstruction period, Yoda realized that he was part of the problem, and he had become complacent. He urged Oppo Rancisis step down from the High Council as he did the same. Yoda and Oppo had served the High Council for centuries, and now someone else had to take the reins, which Plo Koon became the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, and a new couple Jedi Masters would join the ranks of the High Council as well. Ahsoka would begin a new passion project. Being that she enjoyed the investigative research, she joined Taras Anubis for a number of missions. While Ahsoka never resented Anakin, she also never spoke to him again. She avoided him and kept her distance from him. She took Mace's advice, however, it didn't mean that she was just going to interact with him. It's not how she operated, and so she avoided anything of the sort. She would eventually take on her own student, but by the time she did, Daisha Numa was a Jedi Knight, and her master had abandoned the Jedi Order. Ahsoka, like her master, became an incredible teacher, and her student did really well under her guidance. He excelled at everything, and while she struggled with teaching Vapad and Shatterpoint, Mace Windu would give her some pointers along the way. The mystery revolving around the disappearance of Palpatine would never be unveiled, but it would prop up the film industry on Coruscant. Thousands of docu-series and documentaries would pop up, each of them theorizing why Palpatine could have left office, or why he didn't. Some said affairs, others said money, some said fear. No one knew the truth. Why would he be having an affair if he wasn't married? It didn't matter. No one knew the truth, and no one came close to it. But it didn't matter. The Sith were gone, and a new Jedi Council rose. They distanced themselves from the Republic and became their own entity as they began implementing tactics to push into the Outer Rim. Without a strong resistance, there would be redemption for a lost part of the galaxy, and the Jedi would rise from the shambles of complacency in this era of peace. And that, my friends, is our story. Again, special thanks to Galvin Gaming, Tristan, Darth Revan, Pimp Daddy Bane, The Last Jedi, Apollo, WeeWoo670, Ryan Metcalf, The Eternal Padawan, Jedi Sloth, Mr. Yeet Gamer, Mad Max Studios, Anakin003, Fordo's Legacy Star Wars, Lemon Knight, Rex the Wolf, the man with 3 first names, Dark Saint 46, Baron Joshua, and Lord Deadwing for supporting the channel. Smash the like button. If you want to see me read this list even longer, go and join the Patreon. I have plenty of cool updates there, and updates for the Sith Clone Wars are coming out really quickly there. We are 4 episodes in, oh my gosh. Otherwise, let's talk about the story. So, there might be some discrepancies with Windu here and the way that it was handled, but with the way I started the video out with Ahsoka being abandoned by Anakin, I think that changes the entire dynamic between Ahsoka and Windu. And I think the reason is because Ahsoka doesn't want to get abandoned again. The truth is, Windu is like the best and the worst of the Jedi Order. He's a good man, he's a good Jedi, he's a very powerful Jedi, but he also represents the worst of the Jedi because he's complacent, and he's complacent because Yoda, and that's just how it is. He's the best and the worst of the Jedi. He's the best because he's a great Jedi. However, he's the worst because he represents everything wrong with how their order fell, and that was their loyalty to the Republic. And so I wanted to express that here and allow that to show. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I love you all, spread the love, and always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.